Hey, let's go.
I'm playing it. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live broadcast of the Cats and Bolts. 3, 2, 1. Yes, Florida's #1 podcast.
Yeah, you did it. Thank you, Ben Castro, our Cuban producer. Welcome, everybody, to Florida's #1 favorite podcast, most watched hockey show, the Cats and Bolts podcast. I'm Rod. She's Sarina. And here we are for our second consecutive week of live shows. Can we, Betty, you can put on the wide shot, because her reactions are always so great. And we got people tuned in live now. Ben Cobbs is writing, and he's like, I'm early, and hi, Sarina and Rod, and other Ben. Listen, you're in for such a great show. Last week was just a tester, and it was awesome, Sarina. It was one of our most watched shows.
It was crazy because we just decided at the last minute to go live. So we told Chikrin, hey, by the way, we're going live. Thankfully, he's a seasoned vet.
A broadcast, yeah.
Yeah, on the microphone, but it was amazing. We got a lot of good feedback.
Yes,
from
and
it.
Joshua Dorr is checking in from South Florida. He's like, what's going on? So we're going live, and what we're going to do here is when you are writing in during the program, Ben Castro, our producer, is going to read the questions and comments. So, again, we're going to have fun. But Ben Cobbs, who Sarina has, I don't think you've shared space with him, have you?
No,
you
not
haven't
yet.
met him.
No.
He wrote me this morning. He DM'd me on Instagram, and he's like, this is awesome that you're, well, first he goes, you're going live again? And I'm like, we're doing it every week, Ben. We're doing it every week. And he goes, well, that's great because it was BS. You used to have to wait a day. And I'm like,
blame Ben Castro for that.
And Betty, you can... Hey, jump on board and explain yourself why we're doing this. We should have been doing this. This is season 2, episode 26. We finally figured out we can go live, and boom, it's up and uploaded, and we're good.
No, yeah, it's a good time. I like it. There's a lot of Bens, by the way. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
There's like a lot of Bens.
Ben Franklin, Ben Castro,
That's
Ben
the first
Cobbs.
one you thought about, Ben Franklin.
Who'd you think of?
Well, since we're talking about Ben Cobbs and Ben Castro,
The next Ben Wallace?
Ben Hebert.
A
Too much
curler.
curling.
Yeah, a curler. Oh, my God. Okay, so everybody, welcome on in. Have fun. That's what we do here, talking Florida NHL hockey. And I want to get to your questions and comments, everybody. This is your chance. We're brought to you by Beach House Pompano. Spacious, beautiful ocean views. Rooftop dining right on Ocean Boulevard.
You forgot Luscious Green Vibes.
That's Barrasco.
That's
Barrasco. Luscious jungle vibes
right.
and the
Barrasco.
freshest tacos at Barrasco, right? I want to do a thing. I think we got to get Thad down here, the manager, and just say, hey, stop in at Barrasco and Beach House and mention the Cats and Bolts podcast and get 10% off. You think he would do that?
He probably would if he was there. Well, I guess they kind of know who we are anyway.
Tell all the servers. We're not officially saying that today, but why don't you try it and see how it goes?
Just give it a
See,
shot.
I said she's got the best reactions. Okay. So get your questions in. Let's go.
Benny Cobbs needs to start chatting
Yeah,
here.
come on, Ben, Josh. Let's go. You want it live. Let's go.
They're probably already sleeping.
They just want to sit back and enjoy and be entertained like everybody else. But
They're probably watching on their TV, and they're like, oh, if I have to comment, it's too hard.
before we go any further, I just want to give a very special shout out. I was announcing the Wellington Wolverines high school baseball game the other night, and Vicky, one of the mums, came up and she goes, can I get a picture with you? And I said, why? And she goes, well, my nephew plays for the Florida Gulf Coast University hockey team, or he did. And she goes, he's a huge fan of yours, and he doesn't believe that we got you to announce the game. And I'm like, who do you think I am? And she's like, no, you do the Cats and Bolts, the Panthers podcast with a blonde lady? I'm like, yeah. She's like, the whole hockey team's huge fans of the show. So I just want to give a shout out to the Florida Gulf Coast University hockey team.
They should be watching live.
Yeah, where are you guys?
Yeah.
Probably in class, Sarina. Okay.
No.
So let's start. What we do here is we talk Florida NHL hockey. I actually do have several topics that I'd like to get to here today. You see, I'm decidedly Tampa on this side of the ledger. She's on the Florida side. But both teams are hot.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I know. But for the last couple of weeks, they've been the two hottest teams in the NHL.
Not the Panthers. They've lost 2 in a row.
Let me rewind that. The Panthers have lost 3 of their last 4. And they're still on a roadie. They'll be home Sunday night against Pittsburgh. I still feel people still trust Bill Zito and this team. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. Winning means a lot to the people here. I don't think they're that upset.
Well, they shouldn't be. those road trips like the one the Panthers are on right now, those are tough. You're going to get in playing teams like Montreal, who are fighting tooth and nail for a playoff spot right now. And that's why teams like Montreal are winning. You also have Buffalo, who's playing the spoiler, beating all of the top teams around the league. Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs, likely, whatever. But it's interesting to see what is happening out there. But that East Coast, like that Northeast Coast swing is rough. And that's what the Panthers are kind of going through.
Yeah. Well, the Saturday night game at Montreal is a really good example. The Panthers were down 3-0 in the first period. There was a goal called back, a chintzy callback, a reversed goal, but it was 2-0. But I tweeted, I said, did the Panthers think the game started at 8? They weren't ready to go. And after the game, I know you love Paul Maurice's comments. He goes, he was asked about the way his team played. He goes, I would tell you how I think we played, but that would be disrespectful to the way Montreal played because he's so respectful to the opponent.
I just had this
Panthers were garbage.
This conversation with my dad 2 days ago about Paul Maurice and how he reacts to things and how he's the first person to give the other team credit, and versus a guy like John Cooper, he will not, and that's fine, whatever. I'm not personally a big fan of that approach. Give the other team credit where credit's due, but Paul Maurice is just bang on with everything he says. He's that guy that when he says something, you can't argue with him. He's right, and Montreal has been unbelievable lately, and they kind of made a push 6 weeks or 2 months ago where everybody was like, oh, they won a few games in a row and look out. And that's where they're going again, because now they're in that playoff spot as it sits today and they're playing well. I mean, they beat Ottawa, broke Ottawa's winning streak. That was a huge game for both of those teams.
Biggest thing I'm happy about for that situation is that the most volatile league in sports for firing coaches is the National Hockey League. And Martin St. Louis, the Lightning great, said, because they were struggling going into the Four Nations face-off break, and he goes, we need a break. He didn't explain why, but you kind of trust him that he knows what he's talking about, right? And they've come out of the Four Nations face-off just roaring. So maybe they were beat up, tired, mentally, physically, I don't know, but he was right.
Well, they have a small team. The Habs are not a big team. Yeah. So when you have a small team like that, they're going to get the crap beat out of them, except Slafkovsky's humongous. So you have him playing typically with Nick Suzuki and what's the other?
Gallagher?
No, the American kid that plays up front with them. Yeah, Cole Caulfield. It's like some guys are going to get beat up. The only guy who really doesn't get beat up is a McDavid because you can't catch him. But even he still takes a beating, so, and he's not very big. But that's exactly what's happening, I think, with Montreal, is they just needed a break like that.
Right. So they beat up the Panthers, but Montreal's beating everybody. So the Panthers continue on this road trip. They're at Columbus in their next one. Their next home game is Sunday night versus Pittsburgh. And I don't think it's the last chance you're going to get to see Sidney Crosby because he's still their best player. And I think he'll be coming through Sunrise a few times before he shuts her down. But for the Penguins fans, there'll be a lot of them in American Bank Arena Sunday night. But to point to, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they've won their last two, coming off, I think it was a 4-game losing streak, I believe, 3 or 4 game losing streak. But they nudged themselves into second place, Sarina. It was the first time since November 4th that not one of Florida or Toronto were 1-2 in the Atlantic. Tampa Bay moved into second. Like, how high does this go for Tampa? Could they win the division, do you think?
Tampa's playing their best right now, and Florida's not, and Florida's still ahead of them in the standings. So could they win the division? Anything's possible. Will they? I doubt it. However, you never know. What's really interesting to me about this whole race, as it sits right now, Florida's got 85 points. Tampa and Toronto have 83. So they're in second, but they still have just as many. Toronto has just as many points, just, the wins-loss thing. But it's that race is so tight versus Washington or Winnipeg. They're light years ahead of everybody else. That is a tight race, but there's still a lot of hockey to play.
A month.
Yes.
Less than 20 games.
Yeah, some teams have played like 68 games. Some teams have only, like the Kings have only played 66 games. They have 2 games in hand behind Edmonton. They're only 3 points or something behind. So there's not that much hockey left, but there's still plenty. There's almost a quarter of the season left.
I want to say this, by the way, in my list of things, and you guys wanted to go live, so you better start writing in with some comments and steer the discussion here, because trust me, I can do it. I've done a few shows in my day. What do you got, Ben? Put your cute face on the screen. Are they just sitting back watching? And
they're just watching. I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting here. I'm entertained, but yeah, I'm waiting for these comments.
You like this live show stuff, though,
Yeah,
don't
it's
you?
fun.
Yeah, it's good having you on the screen, too. It ups the female viewership.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
You going to say something?
Yeah, I did.
You lost your train of thought.
No, I said it.
Well, one thing, what I do have in my list of things to talk about here is the NHL GM meetings just wrapped up in Mangiapane, Florida. That's what I call it. Manipalan, but I call it Mangiapane. And there's all those topics that we'll get to from there. The ranking of the NHL's owners from 1 to 32 came out from The Athletic this week. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then Ovi, the playoff races, and a lot of other delicious things. But I will say this last thing. Rick Vive was on my daytime talk show today. Toronto Maple Leafs great, for those that don't know. 441 career goals. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. Former Leaf, Blackhawk primarily. And we talked about the Leafs. He said he was going to the game tonight. He was in the alumni suite. You know how that goes. And I said, what do you think of their playoff chances? And he goes, well, if they play Florida or Tampa, they're done. Nobody wants to play these two.
Hold on.
What?
I don't know if it's that nobody wants to play these two. It's that everybody with a brain that follows the Leafs know they're going to choke against one of these two teams. It's just there's something about the Leafs that they just can't seem to beat these teams. I don't know what it is.
They can't beat anybody.
I know. Okay, let's get into this about the Leafs right now. Austin Matthews has been subpar, which that was not the word that was going to come out of my mouth. Can't believe I restrained myself. Ding, ding, ding with the bell. It's the first time I restrained myself on here.
You're sick, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was going to say Austin Matthews has been dog shit, and the Leafs should be embarrassed by him being their captain. As soon as they put that captaincy on him and gave him a new contract, I was talking to my dad the other day, and one of his really good friends is a big Leafs fan, and he is just violent about Austin Matthews' play, and I'm not going to repeat it because people are going to come at me about what he said, whatever. But this is what happens with the Leafs. They wear the shit out of their players. They have for years. Every player, everybody's always like, I don't know what happened to this guy. I don't know what happened to this guy. He played in Toronto. That's what happened to that guy. They get all these players. I remember when Ian White came out of junior, ran him into the ground. And he's got other issues, but there's so many players that just ran into the ground playing for the Leafs. You get drafted by the Leafs, you're screwed. Forget it.
So is it Austin Matthews' fault or the Leafs' fault? Or
Austin Matthews is a captain. It is 100% his fault what's happening there right now. They can blame Mitch Marner all they want, but Mitch Marner is a smart hockey player. And if you don't have your captain, there's a reason Connor McDavid's the captain of his team. There's a reason that Barkov is the captain of his team. So on down the line. So if you want to be the captain and you want to make all that money and you want to play in a city like Toronto, you better be able to pull your weight.
Well, he's been hurt. I'm sure he's probably still battling an illness. He's played in 52 games, which means he's missed about 15. He's got 26 goals and 60 points. He's more than a point a game. I think there's a lot of NHL players that would like to have that. I'm just saying. And by the way, he's from San Ramon, California. Where is that? Do you know?
I think it's Central Coast.
Okay. Not LA area.
No.
Okay, so to the NHL general manager meetings, which has just wrapped up in Manipalan, Florida. Watch for my upcoming column in the South Florida Tribune on this. One title is No, No, No. No All-Star game next year. No rule changes. No playoff expansion. What are you laughing at?
Literally everything that has been coming out of my mouth for the last 2 years about what is wrong with this league.
We've been watching the show and
no, but literally it's like, thank you. The All-Star game was here and it was an absolute farce. I was like, this is a joke.
Wasn't good.
It was terrible. And the rule changes. I've been bitching about rule changes. I've been bitching about teams. There's too many teams that get in the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. Well, no, right.
Ben's
but listen,
way to go, Sarina. Way to go.
It's not
I feel like it's a sarcastic clap. You throw yourself on the screen at any time. You go ahead. It's your show. It's our show. It's your house.
But here's the thing,
I was
though.
just clapping.
Okay.
Everything that comes out of my mouth, people are like, you're just a hater. You don't like this. You don't like that. Was I wrong?
Sometimes.
You can't be wrong about your opinion.
No.
Let me take that back. Some people are actually wrong about their opinion. But what I'm saying is all of the things that I've been saying that I'm like, this is what's ruining the league. All of a sudden, the headline, no. Mm-hmm. So they're not doing any of those stupid things. They're starting to listen to what the people want.
Ben, put yourself on the screen and tell me what you're thinking.
What I'm thinking right now?
Yeah, you're just smiling back there. You're making me nervous.
No. I like when Sarina gets passionate about something, and she has been talking about this for a couple episodes.
This motherfucker.
I didn't know you listened, so this is good.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Even Ben knows. And Ben, you don't watch hockey.
I don't really watch that.
Right. Even Ben's like, yeah, this is literally what she has been saying this whole time.
Okay.
And now everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, okay. So when you guys want to come at me for being a hater or being negative or not liking change, there you go.
No, I didn't think that bothered you, though. I mean, I really didn't think that bothered you. When people say those things.
Yeah, but I take a lot of shit from people here that are like, you're just a hater, typical whatever that said this about American players, whatever. I'm not the only one that says that. I'm just the only person you hear that says that because you live in Florida and you don't actually hear what hockey people have to say about stuff. So if I'm the one delivering the message and you don't like it, I don't care. Don't watch.
But I will tell you, it's getting better in terms of hockey people around here. There are more of them. You're going to continue to always say what you want and that we want you to. But to be devil's advocate here, Jeff Chikrin was such a nugget of wisdom last week. And such a gem. We love Jeff Chikrin because sometimes he says what he shouldn't say. And he said that the salary cap was going up $10 million a year each year for the next 3 years. Nobody else has said that. And so Gary Bettman came out. He had a news conference today at the end of these meetings, and he said, we'll start talking about the CBA in April, and the money's going up. But he didn't name figures. But Chick did. So in terms of what's ruining the game, I wasn't in favor of expansion past 21 teams. I wasn't in favor of a lot of these things, but I can't sit back and say they weren't good in retrospect, and they're making more money than they ever have. I think we all thought the Four Nations face-off was weird, and it ended up being great. So I'm not willing to go out and say that they're ruining anything.
But the thing is, what those specific things that I was saying, like the All-Star game, it didn't have to be turned into a joke. Back 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was an honor to play in the All-Star game. You had to be an All-Star. Everybody wanted to watch it. Then it got to be where guys were like, okay, we don't want to get hurt. Okay. Then it was like, let's do 3-on-3. Let's put some women in there. Let's put some surfboards in there. Guys, enough. So again, those are the things people come at me about because they're like, you're such a traditionalist. Someone said that to me about the All-Star game here. Yeah, because I grew up on watching what I believe to be the right thing. And then I come and see this monstrosity and I'm like, what?
Yeah. But I think we can agree that they agreed because come the next year, they changed everything. So, and out of all of that.
Just like the foot in the crease, but I rest my case on that. I'll never rest my case on that.
Whatever. 26 years ago. Stop living in the past.
That the past represents what we do in the future. The past is how we make decisions about the future.
What shocks me on this, there will be no rule changes thing, and the playoff expansion was Bettman. I got this from Elliot Friedman this morning, by the way, on NHL radio. He goes, Gary Bettman, basically the hill that he'll die on, there will never be more than 16 teams in the playoffs. Wants to preserve the integrity of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm all for that, but I really loved in the bubble in Edmonton, the 24 teams. I like that. And I look at the NBA here. The Heat have had a terrible season, and they're in a playoff spot in the play-in format. So it's just got more markets engaged. That's all. So listen, I'm a traditionalist, but what I can't stand about sports these days and people that work in sports, they don't give a shit about the past. You know they don't, because we see it every day. And now all of a sudden you do, and you want to respect tradition and the integrity. It's very confusing to me.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting because the people here don't care about the past.
And they tell me that.
They don't, right. You can't tell somebody from Montreal that because that city is all about the Habs. Like it's two different worlds. One's not better than the other. It's just different. So the people in Montreal think their way's their way. The people like us from Saskatchewan think our way's the best way. The people here think their way's fine, whatever. It is what it is. But that's why, like, people here don't care about the past because they don't have the past.
Doesn't make it right.
No, listen, if I plucked, I don't know, 100 Panthers fans out of a crowd, I'd be shocked if 10 of them could name more than 5 players that played in the Panthers in the 90s. They don't care, and that's okay. Whatever. You do you. But I agree with you as a traditionalist. Preserve all the stuff that's happened when Gary Bettman's been here. Getting rid of the names of the divisions. Come on. Why?
Because it was confusing for people, so we went to geographic locations.
Right. So we had to...
Do you like my Bettman impression?
Good. I knew you were doing it before. I think mine's better, but I could tell you couldn't help yourself before. But they got rid of all the stuff that was familiar because they wanted to engage the American audience because it was too confusing to know what the Smythe and the Norris division were. They had to put a fucking microphone on the referees because people here didn't have any idea what the penalties were. All this stupid stuff. It's like we were all laughing.
Sure, but NFL does it too, and they know football. So just to be devil's advocate here.
Right, but that was the reason. That was the reason for
it.
putting the mic on because the crowd and the audience and the fans don't know. You don't have to know what the penalty things are. I don't care if you don't know. A lot of people just go to watch the game. It brings the Panthers money. That's fine. It's fine. I don't care if you don't know the rules. If you don't know the rules about hockey, you're not going to learn just watching a game. Any sport, that's fine. Whatever. Go for the entertainment value. But you're right. I agree with you. The confusing thing is like, wait, now we're doing this? Now we're trying to preserve.
We actually agree. Write it down. March 19th, 4 p.m. Eastern. 2025. Rod and Sarina agree on something hockey related.
I think we agreed on like one other thing one time.
In the last however many years. Ben Cobbs writes in why he hasn't commented, Sarina, is he says, I'm at work, Rod. He is the brains behind that outfit, by the way. Even his dad tells me that. Works for his dad. He says, I'm at work, Rod. Can you give the Panthers adaptive team a shout out and tell the viewers about it? It's every Friday afternoon, 5:45 at Baptist Health Iceplex. I've been down there to watch it. Sarina's going to go watch it. These guys just have a great time. I think I saw Ben score a goal. It's just fun. They cut the ice in half like we used to do as kids.
Yeah. Oh, do they? They go this way?
Yeah, they go sideways.
Oh, nice.
It's deadly. And I'm going to fire up the blades and unretire the axe. And go out there.
Are you
going
to play net or forward?
I don't play net anymore. I want to have fun.
That sounds like Luongo.
It's not.
Goes out. And
try being a goalie forever. It's not fun having pucks whizzed at your head.
Well,
FYI.
Yeah.
So
like Luongo, didn't they have a alumni game here where he played out and scored a couple goals?
I was there. It was amazing. Yeah. I don't know if he scored.
Peter
Worrell scored 3 times in the first period. We're like, what the hell just happened?
I'm pretty sure Luongo got a couple goals.
He might have. I was so spellbound that night because it was at the Panthers ice den in Coral Springs, and I was with Ulf Samuelsson. And I'm just sitting there licking his shoes. I'm like, I love you. I'm watching the game with him. It was so great. It was the one thing that they never even advertised during the All-Star week was the alumni game.
Yeah.
But they did pack the rink.
Well, they should.
The hockey people knew.
What was so cool about the Samuelsons back in the day, Ulf had a brother, Kjell Samuelsson. They were huge.
Yeah.
And just like back in the day, there weren't that many Europeans that played in the league. And those
dirty,
two were
awesome.
just ruthless.
I like a good dirty player.
Especially, and for Swedes, they're typically not dirty players.
No, it was like a unicorn.
Yeah.
$3 bill. Ben, this Ben?
Yeah.
You want to read Mike's comment, please?
Oh, yeah. Let me check out Mike's comment.
Ben's half asleep over here.
No.
Wake up, Ben.
No, I'm not. I was going to ask you a different question before I read this.
Keep it in your mind, please.
All right.
Yeah, don't forget.
We're doing a podcast here. Would you mind keeping it down in
and
the
we're
back?
live. We just hear Christian.
It's
All
an
right,
inside
so
joke.
Mike goes ahead and says, miking the refs was a positive. Gotta expose the Tim Peels of the league.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, don't agree.
Tim Peel was just on my show last week. It ended his career. How could you say he's a good guy?
We were just talking about this before we went live because when we go live on Instagram or on YouTube, we're like, we got to be careful what we say around hot mics. We've all been the victim of being around a hot mic before.
Cost Tim Peel his job, but and that might not have even been the ref's mic. I think, from what I understand, that was a camera mic that caught him saying, I had to even up the calls. You know how it is. Last game he ever did. Oh, yeah, don't get me going. I don't want the NHL mad at me.
No, but
it's going great. I don't want them mad at me
Here's
now.
the thing. He wasn't wrong.
No.
But we just called out the league. You call out your employer, that stuff is going to happen.
Don't I know it?
Yeah.
What do you got?
JC goes ahead and says, dang, time difference late, but I made it.
That's JC is in, tell me, JC, Houston. That's the Panthers fan den guy. His basement is all done with mini rinks, and you've seen it.
Yeah,
Either way, these people need to start taking their lunch break at 3:30 Eastern, guys. 3:30 Eastern,
can you do
12:30
that?
Pacific.
It's only one day. Come on.
4 o'clock in Newfoundland and Labrador. Just to throw the old Hockey Night in Canada
Brian
thing
Williams.
out there.
Oh, he's in Dallas. Okay, thank you. So that's
so he's
Central Time, so it's 2:30.
Yeah. It's okay. We
Thank you,
appreciate
JC. And he says, with the recent injuries, do you think it will affect the chemistry/tempo of the team, considering we have a few players skating with each other for the first time? Yeah, but temporarily. I'll tell you this. I was stunned when Brad Marchand was out skating with the Panthers in Boston. I didn't think he would go because the injured players usually don't. Tkachuk was at the elbow room the other night while the Panthers were playing, which is fine. He's hurt. And to sit there and watch Marchand skate, I would have never have thought he was injured at all and weeks away from returning. Like he looked fine. But she's the sports person that way, physically. It's a timing thing. They're missing Marchand. Ekblad with suspension. Tkachuk, obviously. Now Kulikov's hurt. Now's the time. What Maurice said this last week. We'd like to have some adversity before we go into the playoffs.
Yeah, it does take, realistically, if you look at international tournaments, a lot of times it'll take the teams 3-4 games to kind of find that groove if guys have never played together before. So that's a fair question, but I think they'll be fine. I mean, they've got 16 games left or whatever before the playoffs. So yeah, they'll be all right. It just depends. It's always tricky. You never really know because when is Marchand going to be back? When is Tkachuk going to be back? Like it's hard because if you're Paul Maurice and you're like, okay, who do I play with who? Well, this guy with this guy. But then if Tkachuk comes back, maybe that puts Marchand on a different line. Guys he's not used to playing with, right? So, but I mean, Marchand is so adaptable. We saw it at the Four Nations Cup. We've seen it in watching him play internationally for a long time. He's just super adaptable. So, yeah, good question, but it'll be fun.
A good comment. He says, I only say it because it's the playoffs and there was not time to play around. But the thing is, these guys are vets. Bill Zito, I heard an interview with him on NHL radio, and he basically said our locker room has been through so much. They've absorbed so much shock the last few years that they can adapt to things pretty quickly. And I can tell you the entire National Hockey League can't wait to see the line of Matthew Tkachuk, Brad Marchand, and Sam Bennett. It's the biggest pain-in-the-ass line in NHL history. It has to be. It's not even close, Sarina. You don't need to think about it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of some lines that maybe Kenny Linsman played on. Because there was some...
He is one guy.
Yeah, but...
Not three.
Depends who he played with. There was some... Well, we could talk about that all day. That these people do not care.
Yeah.
Don't care about Ken Linsman.
No, they don't. It's going fast. It's going fast. Keep those comments coming in, everybody. Again, I got a lot of topics I can get to and will. But Joshua Outdoor, where'd you go? From 55 Chem says, Hey, Benny, you going to read these or am I going to do it?
Yeah, no, I'm all
You
right.
started taking control, and then you're like, Ben, what's happening?
So, all right, so
I'm so teasing.
55 Chem. We Panther fans can't wait to see that line either.
Listen, you have to understand I'm rarely ever serious. I probably look serious, but I'm not.
Well,
so I like to poke shit at people for fun, and not everybody takes it the right way.
Here's the thing. On Rod's show, he does that. He reads the comments himself. And so it's just habit, I think, for him to be like, hey, this person says this person says that.
We've got a
got
talented, we got a Vanna White over
You
here.
got me.
I was gonna
How
say
you doing?
Sleepy.
Yeah, exactly.
Sleepy producer.
We Panthers fans. Mike, where do you see Marchand signing in the summer? Well, it's a great question, but I think his days in Boston are done.
Yeah. Well, his days in Florida are going to be short too.
Yeah.
So it depends who's looking to unload. Maybe somebody retires that we're not expecting.
Who, does he want to play for a Canadian team? It's hilarious to me that the guys that play for Canadian teams bitch that they have to play for Canadian teams and they have no privacy. Yet the guys like Ryan Getzlaf that played his whole career in America, I said to him, where would you like to have played? Do you have any regrets? I would have liked to play for a Canadian team.
Yeah, like Steve Stamkos. Well, for the second year in a row, the Oilers have the highest no-trade clause agreements on any team in the NHL. A Canadian team has the highest no-trade agreements of all teams.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me, though. It's going to be waived in an instant.
Yeah, but I mean, if guys are saying that, like it goes to show you that guys want to play where they think they can win.
Yes, absolutely. It's
know-
not like Sidney Crosby's like, I won my 3 cups, I made my millions, and I'm just playing it out.
but
you
you
get
don't-
used to winning.
Sure, but you don't find too many hockey players themselves that are like, I don't really want to play in Canada because it's too cold and I have to pay taxes. It's not the
Not
way it
many.
goes. They want to play. They want to play. Connor Hellebuck hasn't said one word about playing in Winnipeg. Who knows? Maybe he has.
He should get a raise for that.
Well,
For not saying it.
yeah, I mean, but it's like it's Winnipeg. We're like, oh, it's Winnipeg, but they're playing in the National Hockey League on a Canadian team. There's not one center in the United States, not one city that has the same passion as the fans in Canada. Not one.
No, that's a given. That's not a
But it's like
criticism.
This is what no, correct. But this is why the players like to play there.
And some hate it. Drew Doughty, you lived in L.A. for 10 years. He never wants to play in Canada. He said it. He's from London, isn't he? Or somewhere.
Yeah, well, Doughty's played in California. He doesn't know anything. I mean, Ryan Getzlaf never said that till after he retired.
Yeah, exactly.
What are they going to say? Oh, yeah.
Okay, here's the fun one. The Athletic, paid subscription website. It's pretty good. And they had I like their surveys all the time. And their most recent one was rank the owners in the NHL from 1 to 32. I had a lot of fun with it on my daytime show the other day. And I don't even know who they polled, but who they normally poll is NHL executives, GMs, assistant GMs, I think scouts, players sometimes, and media. And they rarely get it wrong. And the number one owner voted by these people was Jeff Vinik in Tampa Bay. Number 2, Vincent Viola of the Florida Panthers. And I got the whole complete list here, but I just sit back and go, oh my God, am I so grateful to be in Florida where the 2 best owners are, the 2 best franchises are, as far as I'm concerned. I'll get to the rest of the list. You saw the list,
Yeah.
right? What did you think of it?
It doesn't surprise me because when you see owners like they have in Tampa and Florida, you can tell when the owners just don't get involved in the day-to-day operations. You can tell. You can tell. You can tell why, Buffalo was number 32, I think, on the list, right? Worst ones. You can see it in the way their general managers act. Like Vinny Viola's like, hey, knock yourself out. I pay you guys to do the work, right? Not that he said that, but that's the attitude that we see because he lets Bill Zito have free reign. And it's, the same in Vegas with Kelly McCrimmon. Hey, you're the expert. I pay you the big bucks. You do it. Doug Armstrong in St. Louis. Knock yourself out. Do whatever you want to do from a general manager standpoint. You can always tell when there's chaos.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Jeff Vinik at all. I know people that have worked for him and they love him, and guys that have won Stanley Cups with him. But I've met Bill Foley, the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, and I've been quasi around Vincent Viola, the Panthers owner. They've got that military tie-in. And what the guys in Vegas have told me is, the direct quote, and you love this because you use it, is, Bill Foley doesn't play. And you know what that means.
Kelly McCrimmon doesn't play.
No, but I'm talking about the owners.
Right, but they hire like-minded people to go, if you just do your job and follow the rules, we'll all be happy. And look, at Vegas won a Stanley Cup right away. You know, and it's the same as here. They just let Bill Zito do whatever, as they should. Mm-hmm. But it's not the way it always
Well, the
goes.
point is, in those organizations, if you get caught doing skeezy stuff, whatever that is, if you're not operating above board, you're gone. And to be honest, I'm glad that I wasn't around here. I feel bad for the fans that went through all this shit. And I do enjoy the fans coming up to me and telling me their stories of how bad it was. They quite often compare this to Arizona. They're like, we thought we were going to lose our team every year. You know, and they do love the team. And then it turned around, but look what happened in Arizona. They left. So I'm kind of glad I wasn't here for those bad days. And the Panthers staff tell me how bad it was. And just how when Viola took over, they didn't have to worry about being paid. They had all the resources at their disposal to do their job.
Well, during COVID, you know, Vincent Viola was not laying anybody off. You know, people kept their jobs here. They had jobs. He's like, this is what we got to do in preparation for when we come back. He wasn't scared. You have to spend a buck to make a buck. And he just wasn't scared to do it. And I think that is still filtering down. I mean, realistically, after COVID, besides the amount of people that were allowed in the rink, the Panthers were not even close to filling the rink. I mean, it was only the past couple seasons that they've actually been selling out the rink. So, but it's because they're winning. They're putting a product on the ice. But that takes time. You get a good owner and you get a good general manager. It doesn't mean it's just going to happen like that.
Mike, thank you for the comment, Mike. And Mike, I need to converse more with you. You seem like a cool dude. He writes in and says, Alan Cohen era was absolute hell on earth as a Panthers fan. That's what I heard, and that reminds me, we got to get Mike Keenan in here. I understand he lives in Florida. He's kind of divulged a few stories on my other daytime show that I do about working for this Cohen guy. Basically promises that were made that weren't kept. That kills your soul. And that's not just a sports thing, but it's a fact. It kills your soul.
Hey, the word franchise covers a lot of different corporations in America. I've worked for franchisees. Some are good. The same corporation could have a different franchisee, completely different ball game. It's the same at anybody's job.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I feel like I don't love that poll. Who's the best? Who's the worst owners? I don't love it because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really mean anything. And essentially you're calling out like...
Oh, yeah. Well, I love this, though, because NHL.com doesn't want to make anybody look bad. When they do their power rankings, it's like the top 16 teams. They don't talk about the teams that are out of the playoffs. And I'm like, well, I want to read who you think is the worst teams. I can kind of see it for myself, but I want to see what everybody else says. Same thing with these owners. The Sabres, from what I understand, everything's blowing up next year because they're 14 straight years out of the playoffs. Your Oilers were ranked number 22nd, their owner, Daryl Cates, the 5th best in Canada. Any thoughts before we move on?
You know, Daryl Cates has gotten a bad rap for a couple different things. I don't know enough behind the scenes stuff. I've heard some things. Obviously, I'm hearing mixed reactions about the fans and whatever about Ken Holland, just kind of all those things. So that all filters up, right? Those are Daryl Cates' ideas, but he's also a very involved owner, and I can't say I love that about him.
It's Edmonton. You're going to hear good stuff and bad stuff about everybody because there's not much else to do in the winter.
Yeah, well, they don't care about anything else up there.
Yeah. Few things. I'll skip this out because we only got a few moments left. Number one, office mate of mine. She works down the hallway. She's from Montreal in the studio where I do my other show, and she came up to me. And she's like, oh, I'm going back to Montreal this week, and I'm just a huge Habs fan, and we deserve to win the Stanley Cup. We deserve it. It's been since 93. And I'm like, you got the most recent Stanley Cup for a Canadian team, honey. I can think of a lot of other teams that deserve a cup more. Fan bases and franchises. And mine would be Winnipeg. And you can't say the Oilers because you're always going to say the Oilers. Who deserves the cup the most besides Oiler fans? I saw the look in your eye.
First of all, no team deserves to win the Stanley Cup. No fan base deserves to win the Stanley Cup. But I can't think of any other franchise in the National Hockey League that has lost 2 Game 7s of the Stanley Cup final in their last 2 appearances other than the Oilers. So don't even go there with we deserve to win the Stanley Cup. Edmonton deserved to win, sure. So did Florida. They were both there. They both deserve to win. You can't say you deserve to win. Winnipeg, sorry.
It's Winnipeg for me.
Winnipeg's never been to the final. That's their problem. Vancouver's actually been to a final. I
Lost
still don't
Game
think,
7s as well.
Right, and I still don't think they deserve, because I just don't think that teams deserve.
Who would you like to see win a Stanley Cup besides Edmonton?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that if you're going to compare things like that, there's no fans that are probably in more agony than Leafs fans. I mean, it's been 100 years since a Leaf, but like 50, whatever. No, what year?
Since
is it?
67.
70, 60, whatever years.
59.
Is that how many years it's been? Whatever. Since they won a Stanley
58.
Cup. Like, guys, nobody is in more agony than these fans that have watched their team when they should have won and they lost and they get up a few goals and they lose and there is nothing more painful than watching your team get up and blow a 3-goal lead in the playoffs. It is absolutely the worst, and the Leafs fans have suffered from it. So bless her heart, but her problem is the Habs have won 24 Stanley Cups, so they just think it's about time.
I know.
Right?
Well, like you've won more cups than anybody. It's like saying the Yankees deserve a World Series more than anybody
but
else.
it's the longest the Habs have ever been without a cup. So,
Boo-hoo.
I get it.
By the way, there's no wrong answer to this. It's fun to talk about. I didn't think you'd go off. Who lit your string on fire?
I don't know, some of the things.
Inside joke. JC is bringing that sizzle here from Dallas. He's trying to get in your kitchen. He says, in the bad days regarding the Panthers ownership, he says, you used to be able to bring sliced bread or canned goods to get a ticket. LOL. I understand that the Viola regime ended that. That's what they've told me.
Sliced bread.
He says, at what point do you just realize the orders are not good enough and don't deserve squat?
Oh, I know that's just bullshit.
You're not going to let them get under your
because
skin?
the Oilers are good enough.
Okay. Boo. Try harder to get under her skin. I'm really good at it.
I like the perishable food item situation, though. You bring some fucking food, you're in.
You know what?
hockey?
And that's how we at for time. Oh, now the viewership's going up.
Oh.
Yeah, we're like, Mike says, how about Calgary? Got close in 04 and somewhat screwed in the finals. Kind of been torture ever since for those fans. Bro, they bring up 04 every single day in Calgary. I basically lived there for 2 years before coming here. Every day they bring up 04 when they got screwed by Tampa. I'm not saying they deserve it, though.
Not until after they bring up the one Stanley Cup they've won. They need to touch on that first. And then they talk about 04.
But I know what you're saying.
Okay,
she hates Calgary more than
fuck the
anybody hates
Flames.
anything.
Yeah, no, I can't.
You're not going to get any sympathy from her.
No.
The Flames, they've been pretty good to me after sucking my soul out 10 years ago. So
Get over the past. Get over the past.
I hate when she uses my words against me.
It
Write
was like
down.
20 minutes.
Ben, do you want to put a bow on this thing?
Is there any more topics, or what are we doing
Yeah,
here?
but I kind of feel like we're kind of going over time.
Keep going. Wait.
what time is the
we're
next
live.
podcast?
You're
Right
good. 4:45.
Okay.
I
all right.
don't want to be the podcast that goes an hour and like bores people.
Yeah, because it's
That's
terrible.
fair. Okay.
But if we're going live, anyway, you can turn off if you don't want to listen. Okay.
I got a couple. Get right in with your questions and comments. Thank you, everybody. Well,
put
number
like
one, Ovi's 8 away. He has caught fire. I can't stand analytics, just so you know, because analytics say it's supposed to happen April 10th in Carolina that he breaks the Gretzky record. But he's on fire, man. He could do it. He's 8 away. They're starting a 3-game homestand here this week. He could do it on home ice. I mean, probably won't, but how do you feel about this?
I don't feel.
I know that, but how do you feel about this?
I've turned off the feels about that. Can't
Okay.
go there.
Wah, wah, wah. These are the tightest playoff races of all time.
Ooh.
Statistically. I don't mind those analytics.
Well, because they're statistics versus analytics.
Yeah.
this playoff race right now is so hot. And of course, people in the East here mostly watch the, Metropolitan Atlantic Division, the wild card, whatever. In the West, it is so close right now that Vegas, I think, has 86 points, Edmonton 84, LA 81, and then Minnesota is in a wild card spot, tied for the Kings. Like, it is like bing, bing, bing. It is so close right now that Calgary could make it. Who is the other team that's really close?
Oh, over there?
Yeah.
Blues, Utah,
St. Louis,
Calgary, Vancouver.
St. Louis has won 3 in a row. It's just so close over there. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's fun. And well, these rinks here are sold out every game, so it's fun here. But you got two great teams. You're not clinging. It looks to me like the Panthers and the Lightning are going to be in. But the guys were telling me with my staff on my other show that I guess in Montreal they were interviewing the first star in the Bell Center last night, and they're like, for your playoff holding Montreal Canadiens, the first 21,000. The place went nuts. It's like, you understand? Tomorrow you could be out. They don't care. They're just going ape shit up there, and I'm like, I can't. I absorb people's energy. I got to check out of this stuff because it's driving me nuts.
But just to be clear, in Montreal, they're not being cocky. That's not it. That's not the way they are. They're just like, we're going to celebrate what we've accomplished so far because nobody expected us to be here. And when they do the 3 stars, like when we were kids watching Hockey Night in Canada, we're like, who's going to be the 3 stars? Like, everybody's glued to the 3 stars.
At least they
up
never
there.
abandoned that.
No,
hockey.
And in Montreal, they wait. Everybody waits so that they can cheer on, their number 1 star. And like, I can still hear all the announcers up there announcing the stars.
La première étoile.
Yeah, and people just go freaking bananas up there.
All right, I got a question for you. Mike says wild card predictions. Who ends up with both WC spots in the East and West?
Wild card. Well, we did address this 2 weeks ago on this show, but I will again because it's changing all the time. I'd like to see Detroit in. I want to see the Rangers out because I made those predictions that would happen. And honestly, Ottawa's got a soft spot in my heart. I do love the Canadian teams. I always will. I'd like to see Ottawa in. I'd like to see Detroit in. And that's it. I don't want to see the Rangers in. And in the West, Flames, said that. And I guess Minnie's holding the spot.
I think Minnesota is probably going to be. They have like a pretty significant lead. I'd like to see Calgary out. But in the East, it's just so close. You just never know how this is going to go, but keep it I don't know. There's so many variables, but I would like to see Columbus in, the Rangers. They played Calgary last night and lost. They got 13 shots on net on home ice. They lost to the Oilers. They lost to Calgary. You get 13 shots on net, you're fighting for a playoff spot. The Rangers are not making the playoffs this year. They're
hope
cooked.
not.
They're cooked. They're not going to do it. Detroit, I don't think Detroit's going to make it either. Detroit's never had that punch that everybody's expecting them to have the past couple of years.
No, well, they said after they fired Derek Lalonde for about a month and a half, they were the hottest team in the NHL for that 45 days. And now, and I think they had a 7-game losing streak here recently. It's like, get your shit together, guys. How many coaches do you need to fire? By the way, Mike says, Sens Rangers in the East and Wild Blues in the West. And the Red Wings are cooked. I love that these Panthers fans are showing up, and hopefully we get some Lightning fans in here doing the same thing with these live shows. It's great. And Ben says, Rod, the adaptive hockey is now full rink, which I don't know why you would do that. I'm not a fan of the full rink because it's too much skating. There's more action when you cut it.
It's like when they put the little kids on at the Panthers games. I'm like, it takes the
why do
game
you
is
do that?
2 minutes, and it takes the kid 45 seconds to skate down to one end.
At least.
Yeah. God.
So good for you guys for doing that, but I'm in favor of half court, we used to call it. I assume they still do. Okay. I'm done talking, Ben.
That's a long one.
Yeah, what do you got?
No, that was great. That was a good episode.
Every week, guys, live. Every week, we're going to go live. Stop screwing around. Take your lunch break at this time. Put it in your calendar. Put it in your Google Calendar. Ben's pointing at you to get it together. And put a notification in your Google Calendar. Have your friends call you. Call your friends. Start happy hour early.
This is like America's Got Talent. Pick me.
Start
pick me.
punching, throwing strippers. I'm trying to figure out what you're.
No, he's it's like America's Got Talent, right? Like vote one. You know.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was like, why
Yeah.
is he doing this?
That's what it is. Yes.
I will not
Well,
take
you
my
said-
clothes
Funny
off.
where your mind goes, Sarina.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I saw this.
She is leaving for 2 weeks now as she pumps everybody up and then takes off. So
Well, I
we'll
might
see
be
who's in
here-
that chair next week.
Well, if nobody, I'll be here.
Okay.
Record it, but
We'll hold you to that.
Okay.
Ben, great job, buddy. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week here on Cats and Bolts.
I caught it. Finally. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Cats and Bolts every week. Yo.